Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Thoughtful Talent Show. I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching.
And I'm Chad Ahern of Talent Teams Consulting. And today we have two wonderful guests back. Actually, both of them are returning to us to talk about our CliftonStrengths theme of restorative today. I'm honored to introduce Jessica Cowan. Jessica is the owner and principal consultant at Cowan Consulting. Their motto is "Your Need, Our Solution," which I think is going to be very appropriate for today's episode. Jessica and her team bring creative, innovative solutions to your unique business needs, including high performance team and leadership training, strategic planning, small and mid-sized business consulting, implementation planning. She covers all the bases. Jessica is a fellow Gallup-Certified strengths coach and an Easy Growth certified coach, like the rest of us. Jessica is also an adjunct professor at Rhodes College, where she teaches intro to computer programming, and also has an extensive background in nonprofits. Jessica is a returning guest, so those of you that saw our connectedness episode, right? Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure I got my notes right on that one. We'll recognize her coming back to the show. So welcome back, Jessica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Yes, welcome back, Jessica. And it's my honor to introduce and welcome back Kevin Fallon. You may recognize him from our individualization episode. Kevin and I went through certification at Gallup years ago. So he is also a Gallup certified coach. His career has focused on HR, talent acquisition, talent development, career coaching and consulting, and more recently in the insurance and financial services. He's often referred to as a high energy ideas guy. I love that. Who can also get it done. Being dynamic, agile, and a creative problem solver. We're hearing it already, the cues to today, with the ability to simultaneously think strategically and execute tactically. He says, and I love this, is like his motto, life is short, so work smart and have fun along the way. Welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you.
So before we dive in, and I have Chad read for us the Gallup description, I wanted to just bring it out. Where does restorative sit for everyone? Kevin, for you?
Number one.
It is number one. Awesome.
Number one.
And Jessica, for you?
It is number 6. So
all right. The honorable mention. Yes, I remember that from our connectedness episode. Thank you for coming on today. And Chad, where is this for you?
Yeah, this does not sit particularly high, though it's not the lowest. This is number 21 for me. So
okay.
Well, I get tinges.
Well, you beat me. I'm at 25. So right. So we have the experts here to talk to us today. So before we dive into how this works for them, Chad, can you share with us Gallup's short description?
Yeah, so to ground us all, it's always great to start with the short description. So Gallup defines it as follows. People exceptionally talented in the restorative theme are adept at dealing with problems. They're good at figuring out what is wrong and then resolving it. So we've already started to hear tinges of that. I love that Jen brought it out in Kevin's intro. Jessica, I love your need, your solution. Really, ties nicely with the talent theme that we're going to talk about today. And so I think that leads us right into our first question, which is, we know that traditionally we don't talk about talent themes as just themselves in silos, and we'll talk about sort of the theme dynamics later, but I am kind of curious how this theme shows up for you personally. What sort of activities or behaviors do you tend to associate closest with your restorative? Jessica, I'm wondering if you could start us off, and Kevin, I definitely want you to engage in this conversation, and I know you have plenty to share from our past show on individualization. That your restorative is also a big part of how you look at life. So Jessica, why don't you start us off? What does this look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, restorative, it really, it shows up everywhere in the sense that like I absolutely love solving problems. And like sometimes problems or things that aren't necessarily operating effectively or efficiently how it shows up. And so I'm able to see like what's wrong, when I'm sitting around and talking to people or sitting in meetings, a lot of times I might find like hurdles or challenges or things that might need tweaking. And so like or anytime I hear a problem, I'm like so willing to like solve it or come up with a solution. My nickname, some people call me like Clutch because I'm just like the person that they can depend on, like to come up with a solution, like especially like in a very critical moment. So
Nice.
if they need someone to show up to do something, and in restorative being there executing, like it's how I get things done. A lot of times it activates me. Like if there's a problem and I have a solution, then I'm like taking off to like solve it. And the good thing about it is like it allows us to like sometimes foresee problems and solutions. Like I can see like if I'm hearing for instance, like if I'm talking to someone, or even just a few days ago, someone was texting me and they had a problem come up, and or they was just telling me about a problem, and within the next minute or so, like I texted them the solution. I was like, here, just do this. And so for me, it really is, I'm like a troubleshooter. I'm just always there with solutions, and can identify the problem but match it to a solution. So it just shows up everywhere.
Nice. Nice. I love the tinge or the slight variation on identifying problems, but then immediately solving them, because I know Jen and I talk a lot about a deliberative of seeing the risks coming, but then we usually have to tap into another theme to sort of get over them or figure our way through them. So love that start, Jessica. Kevin, I'm curious what you would have, how does this show up a little differently, or what I was noticing some nodding, so I'm sure some things are resonating. How does restorative show up in your life?
Well, sure. So first, I just have to tell you guys, and I've taken this assessment 4 times since 2008. Each time it was related to a job. I had started a job or joined a new team and was asked to take it. And at the time, first time, I lived in New York, and I'd been living in New York for many years at that point. So, the old saying about New York makes you very cynical and jaded. So, I kind of had this, oh boy, an assessment. Wow, what's this possibly going to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, then I got the results. And I read restorative, because the first time and by the way, all 4 times I've taken it, restorative has bounced between 1 or 2. I was just at that before the show. And I read the description, and I was instantly hooked on this assessment, reading that description the first time, because like, this is so me, and it is just so accurate. And I can trace it all the way back to when I was a kid. I can think back to some of the best times I had with my dad. We would be fixing things. I'm thinking about like our shed in our backyard was dilapidated. Everything was overgrown. It was just a real eyesore. And one Saturday we went out and we just started clearing away all the overgrowth, painted it, went to the hardware store, got new hinges, new hardware, fixed it. It looked like a brand new shed by the end of the weekend. And I just remember that satisfaction and like sitting there looking at it. And so then it just started to kind of go from there all throughout my life. And my first job, I became known as the continuous improvement fix-it person, because I just liked fixing things. In my personal life, because originally you had the original question that you had asked is like, how is this personally? On the personal side, when I get involved in nonprofits, volunteering, it doesn't take long for them to kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, would you like to be president or VP? And that's happened on more than one occasion. And it's because, I have this passion and energy for going in and fixing things. And, if there's a problem, something to be improved upon, I love to tackle it head on. And I just love the feeling that comes from it. Could be fixing up a house. There was a point in my life where my hobby was to buy old rundown houses. This was back even before HGTV made it
before everybody else was doing it.
Right? And then everybody got in on the act, and it's not any fun anymore. But where I could see, and my parents used to tease me about this when I was a kid, because I would study. This was back before the internet, so I'm going to really age myself. Okay, boomer. This is an okay boomer moment, even though I'm not a boomer. I'm Gen X. Okay,
Yes, Gen X.
But the younger folks are watching. They're probably going, okay, boomer. But before we had the internet, when you wanted to buy a house, you would get a magazine. There were homes books.
Oh yeah.
So you'd go to your favorite pizza place and be waiting for your pizza. You'd pick up the Holmes book and you'd flip through it. Well, every time we would go to a restaurant, I'd grab that thing, I'd study it, and I'd study these houses. And my parents said, what are you doing? And I'm like, Well, I'm coming up with ideas for how to fix it up or how to change it.
Nice.
The worst thing that ever happened in my free time was when realtor.com came along, and then you
Oh,
started getting 50 pictures of a house instead of just that one in the magazine, because
Yeah.
then you could look at the rooms and you could really plan out how you would renovate it. But
oh, wow.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
so great.
That's awesome.
I would add memory to my computers as a kid because I needed more memory space to play the games that I wanted to play. So the computer, and I would
Oh my
always
goodness.
update and fix my old PC,
Yeah.
Yeah, so fixing things as a kid, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nick,
I wanted to tap into something you said, Kevin. Like you sound like this like actually energizes you, like to see the problems and to think of the ideas and the ways that it can be fixed. Is that true?
absolutely, positively. And in fact, there's times where it can almost become a little bit of a distraction. And a story I would tell you is one time at work, I was asked to do an assignment and deliver a report. And while trying to build and compile the report, I was finding all of these broken process issues and problems. And I wanted to fix them as I was going along. And my leadership kept reminding me, we just need the final report by this date. Don't worry about those other things right now. We'll take care of those when the time comes. But right now, focus on getting us the data on time. And then you can, after we get past the deliverable deadline, then you can go back and fix things. But yes, I just, it really truly is energizing. And I think it's kind of like the fun or the thrill of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Jessica, you're talking about, your computer, you probably just got really into it and then enjoying the end result when you were done. It was like icing
Exactly.
on the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jessica, you were nodding a lot. Is that energizing for you too?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, like I feel like it activates me in a sense, like it gets me started and then it keeps me going. Like just always constantly finding solutions, even working with clients that have like a lot of different like ideas or things or businesses that they're working on. I love helping them overcome the obstacles and challenges that they encounter on an everyday basis. So it fuels me.
yeah.
Awesome.
One
A
of the
little
other things that, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one of the things I'm hearing, and I think Jessica, we've talked about this a little bit before. Of this is not a surface level fixing. This is deep core stuff, right? This is
Right. Yeah.
it doesn't do much good. And Kevin, you may have brought this up when we were talking in the last time we had you on. Is this is not just slap a coat of paint on something. This is fix. This is like going the report direction. You didn't just want to fix the final report. You wanted to fix every other step that led into it. Is that a theme through both of you, that it's about the core, not the surface sex?
Yeah. For me, it's like it was when I'm working with individuals, and it took me a minute to realize that restorative, and I feel free to chime in if it's a restorative trait or just, it could be the computer science is all about solving problems. I didn't know this when I chose this as a major, but it made sense as to why I enjoyed like building code, solving problems and thinking through things at a critical level and then breaking things down. And so even as restorative, when I'm looking at problems, like I like to break it down to the core root of the problem. Like what is the root issue? And working with people in the workplace, sometimes I realize that sometimes their solution might cause other problems along the way. And so the solutions that I tend to come up with are usually able to solve future problems that might come up, or I really try to identify that core issue that's really causing the most problems and try to and come up with a solution for that. That's really energizing for me. Like that, that's exciting. Like I love that. And everyone doesn't like problems, so it's weird. I mean, it's not weird, sorry, but it's different. You have to realize that. So
Kevin, what's your take on this core versus surface take?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you're reminding me of a time when one of the houses that I was renovating, I opened up one of the walls and found pretty significant structural issues. And, one of the people that was involved said, oh, you know what, we'll just put up new sheetrock, paint it. Nobody will really know the underlying issue. Doesn't matter. You're going to sell this anyway. And I said, no, that's just not the way we do things. That's not the way I want to do things. That's not the right way of doing it. We're going to tackle this head on, and we're going to go all the way down to the bones and correct what's below the surface And I think, it's the energizing, the satisfaction of doing it, but it's also the peace of mind of knowing you did it right.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't want to pass something on to somebody and then
Right.
have them experience issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My deliberative can get along with that.
Yep. And my responsibility
And the
licks that you took that on. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to move us into, a bit of a different place. We always like to talk about keeping our talents in the Goldilocks zone, but sometimes they can run a little hot and get us in some trouble. So I want to start there first and finish on a high note. But if we start here first, we know that our talents can be our best things, and they can also drag us down. So do you guys have any examples of where restorative has maybe gotten in your way, negatively impacted your life or work? Kevin, let's start with you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, where I could, there's times where I wish I could not see certain problems or certain things. When I was involved in my neighborhood in the community, I would come home from work and I would pull in through the entrance and I would see what was wrong with the entrance gates. And I would go to meetings and talk about it, and it wasn't getting anywhere. So finally I just got out and I did it. And I just spent a couple of weekends fixing it. And some people were like, wow, we had no idea. And there's some people who still to this day have no idea what we did or why we did it or why it was important and why it mattered. So there's times where I wish I could not see certain things and not let those things bother me to the point where, I'll pull an all-nighter fixing things I really didn't need to fix just because I just had to fix it. And once my mind was made up and I was on a mission, it had to be done. But, there've been multiple times throughout my career in the work context where I'd be in danger of not hitting a deliverable deadline because I was fixing things that may not necessarily needed to be addressed at that point in time. So yeah, that's where it can really challenge you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for that. Jessica, do you have similar or other examples?
Yeah, no, those are great examples, Kevin, because sometimes we can get in the weeds of the problem, versus kind of targeting it towards that mission or the goal, the overall goal. Like, is this problem crucial to hindering us from achieving the goal? But no, similar for me, negative ways that it has, impacted my life in a negative manner is sometimes, I had to realize over time that everyone does not want a solution to the problems that they might be presenting to you. And they might not even want to know that what they're talking about is a problem. That there's a problem in the midst. And so a lot of times, as in the sense of negatively impacting me, I use it as a power tool though for while growing up, because I love to hear, I was just like, I would tell people, come vent. Like, you can always vent to me. Like, it doesn't bother me. People with high positivity probably would complete opposite, but I didn't realize that what I loved doing was hearing problems and coming up, helping them solve their problems, things that are frustrating them. And my restorative looks a lot like, I like to help people solve their problems because I have relationship building themes surrounding my restorative theme. And so how it can negatively impact is really sometimes even in the workplace. Sometimes the organization is building and moving, and so you don't need to identify all the problems every time you see them. There's a time and a place, and even sometimes people that you need to share those things with, and not only identifying the problem, you have to move forward and to start identifying and presenting solutions. And I found that to be more how I've switched it from negatively impacting my life to being like, oh no, you're always like criticizing, always like pointing out things that don't work well, like what works right, and I had to shift and realize that, oh, I do identify the problem a lot, but I don't see it as an issue. So I switched that to okay, what is the solution to these problems? Another way is sometimes I found myself maybe shifting careers too soon, or because I was frustrated with the lack of movement towards a solution. It's like, you know what the solution is, but we might not care about identifying or addressing that problem. And as someone with high restorative, that ruffles it just doesn't sit well with me. I'm always looking to improve or get something back to its original state, or even get it to where it can be with my developer, that kind of leads me there. But I found myself getting frustrated with like lack of movement towards solutions and towards goals. And then that lack of frustration sometimes leads me to become disengaged from the environment, to remove myself completely, or to just not be around as much. And so I found that probably, I think that could negatively impact someone, or even it has had a negative impact on my life. But I've kind of learned from those mistakes and now lean more into the solution piece.
Yeah.
You make me think about, you're making me think about how, as a coach, one of the things, because when I was getting coached on how to be a better coach, one of the things that I was told was that, like if Jen were to bring me a problem and I was the coach, I would want to launch right into, this is how we're going to solve it. This is how we're going to fix it. This is what we're going to do. Instead of taking Jen along for the problem solving journey to get to the answer. And a perfect illustration of this was one time I was at a conference and they called a person up onto stage who had no idea how to juggle. They said, if you have no idea how to juggle, we want you to come up on stage. So a brave person goes up on the stage and the facilitator who knew how to juggle was going to teach this person how to juggle without telling them how to juggle. And it was fascinating to me how within just, I think it took about 15 minutes, they had a person juggling without telling them exactly what to do. And it was because they kind of helped this person problem solve it. And, what I was told was, that's what makes a great coach, is when you take your client through the problem solving journey. Don't just hand them a solution. My biggest temptation when I was doing working in college career services with college students, and they'd come in with a messy resume, my biggest temptation was, give me that in electronic format. We'll put it up on the computer. We'll fix it right now. And they would give me a flash drive. We'd plug in their computer and I'd start fixing up the resume. I would teach them as I was going along. This needs to be here. Here's the reason why, the person has attention span, all that stuff. But, my other coaches were like, well, that's really not the way we do this, because, the old expression, you give a person a fish, they'll eat for a day. You teach a person to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime, kind of thing.
Yeah. Kevin, that reminded me of when you said, like, we always kind of sometimes present the solution. For me, that's where I had to find the balance of coaching and consulting, because sometimes, like, I love presenting solutions so much, and sometimes businesses need that solution that, like, I couldn't just do coaching. I had to do the consulting piece too. But there is a balance between, really helping people understand and problem solving and teaching them those skills. That's crucial.
One of the things you've shared with us in the past, Jessica, is about that, like the difference between the raw and the mature in restorative. Can you share that with our audience too?
Yeah, I believe it's around like being more problem driven versus solutions driven. Is that what?
Yeah. That's what I couldn't remember exactly how you said it before, but you said it so well. I wanted to make sure that we said that, because that's what I've noticed in those who have high restorative, is that they are able to see the problems. Typically, they also know exactly what to do to fix it, which I didn't realize. And sometimes they were getting shut down because they're always bringing up, like, this is what I see, this is what's wrong. And they were getting shut down before they could even offer the solution, because everyone's, like you said, with positivity. I don't want to hear any more of it. Like, don't tell me about the problems, right?
Right. Yeah. And you know what helped me? I was in grad school, and one of my friends, like, I was on one of these rants, going through all the problems that I saw, and she was very patient and allowed me to rant away. And then she asked this one powerful question that I'll never forget. And she was like, so what did you learn from this? Or, so what's the solution? Just asking those questions can really turn a switch in our brains to be like, okay, so let me now stop talking about the problem and now get to the end and present the solution. Like, what is the end result? Like, because we have ideas about all this stuff. There's a calmness that comes with dealing with problems for me.
Awesome. Well, you guys are launching perfectly into where I wanted to go next, which is like, where do you see this, and how has this like really helped or benefited your life, your work, whether that be, personal life and work. Any ways you feel like this has really launched you or been able to launch the success of your business. I mean, we both have already kind of touched on that. Kevin, can we start with you this time too?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I can point to 3 jobs that I've had in my career where a recruiter approached me and said, "Hey, we've heard about the work that you've done and how you've transformed in your current gig. We'd like to talk to you about an opportunity with us." So like a colleague, one time it was a colleague that I had worked with had left and gone to a new company and had talked me up at the new company and said, if you want somebody who can fix this, this is the person you need to contact. And so they did. And then it led to the three kind of highlights of my career, three of the brightest spots were those three, where it was the restorative theme that had kind of caused them to reach out to me and invite me onto their team and give me the opportunity to take on the endeavor. And then really leveraging the restorative in those roles to achieve objectives and get the job done. So yeah, it's definitely been, I would say it's probably the core theme to my career.
Oh,
That's
that's
so,
awesome.
so
What a
interesting to hear.
celebration.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, what an interesting take on sort of career transitions and sort of your, I don't know, the word trademark is coming to mind. The sort of the thing you're known for is, so often in business, particularly in business, we're always hearing about sort of the newest and greatest thing. And this innovative leader can bring brand new approaches. And yet here we're hearing a wonderful application of a set of talents that are a lot about sort of fixing the processes. And I just really appreciate you highlighting that, Kevin, because I think some people that, I think it's syncing a little bit with my deliberative and the responsibility of often I was the one that pointing out the risks or pointing out the problems that were forthcoming that didn't always get the attention they deserved. And yet here you are making a career out of, you are the fix it guy, and I think that's just fantastic. So really appreciate you highlighting it, because I think that there are some people, Jess has brought it up, you've brought it up, you can be very problem focused, but yet there is a massive benefit to that in the long run. Right. So I think that'll be comforting to some of our listeners that are like, well, I'm always talking about the problems and nobody seems to see the benefit. Here you've made the entire benefit of your career out of it. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut Jess off. I thought that was fantastic. And I've been working with some people with restorative that are really maybe struggling to see, what is the true benefit? How does this get recognized? And here you are, being recognized 3 times over for it. So
yeah, and what a celebration to be able to be like noticed and recommended because of this ability. I think that's amazing. Thank you. Yeah. Jessica, what how about for you?
Yeah, no, those are like, I love that because the career transitions, as you said, like it is, helped you shift. I just mentioned how sometimes it has helped me shift out of positions. However, I was reflecting and that shift has also, the restorative has also given me the confidence to face problems like head on, like I don't think I would have been as confident to launch my business or even to shift out of career fields if I didn't lean in this restorative strength of being able to solve problems head on. And as they come up, like I'm confident enough to feel like I will be able to come up with a solution. That's also trust and faith and all that. There's other strengths that help that, but I've always, I'm motivated by problems. And so when I feel like as it has helped me in my life and business is I'm able to make order out of chaos a lot of times. Like, and nice. Like people know in businesses, even they know that there's not a problem that I'm like afraid to address and to take on like, and address like right there. If I have the tools that I need to address a problem right there, like I'm looking to address it right then and there, and to come up with solutions. And so, so it's helped me like launch my business. It is, as you mentioned earlier, like my motto, your need, our solutions. Like people have needs and communities have needs. And so there's a lot of issues and problems that need to be addressed out here. And so I think I lean into it also to look at things on a grander scale, like what are the community needs and what is the thing that can really help communities thrive. And it started off being like, we need more nonprofits, we need stuff for the youth, and then it turned into we need foundations because we need places to pour this money into. And so I've been really adamant in helping get a foundation started in our community, because I'm like, I just kept going to different like problems. Like, this is a problem. This is needed. Like, this is needed. But in order to supply this, we need this. And so it just kept, going on a larger scale. And so I've been really involved in helping get some things going in the community to help address the problems in the long run. And so it just helps me get things going and started. And so I think that has come into play a lot of ways, and people know that they can depend on me to come up with solutions and identify the problems. Like, if you want to know, I tell places now, if they hire me, like, I'm like, don't ask me what the problem is unless you want to know all the problems, because and if you're really ready to move towards a solution, then we can talk. But otherwise, if you're not solution oriented, or you're not ready to address the solution, you'll just kind of, cause some friction or something.
Well, and I love hearing all the energy too. It's back to the echoing of what Kevin said. Like, this actually energizes you guys. It gets you started, and it like excites you to see the problems and then know that you could tackle them. So
Yeah.
And then to Jessica's earlier point about, because I can so relate to this one, where, if you're not seeing enough progress and in towards improvement and fixing things, then you tend to just, reach a point where, like, I'm frustrated, I'm out of here. I've confronted that too in my career, where I just didn't feel like, leadership was listening or cared or had any interest in, continuing to grow and evolve and develop and, be the best that we could possibly be. And so I just said, well, then it's time for me to go find the next gig, because this isn't. And then, Jessica, I was also, when I hear you talk about, your different experiences and talk about clients, I've had times where I've exited relationships with clients because it was clear to me that they were not interested in problem solving. And it was just, to me, it just felt like wheels stuck in the mud.
Right.
Yeah.
And just rehash. And, sure. I mean, I could have been, slightly unethical and just kept the money coming and just said, let's talk.
Right.
But it just wasn't the best use of everybody's time,
Does the Einstein quote come to mind when you think of cycles or doing something over and over? Like, a definition of insanity is maybe that quote comes.
Look at Cowan's face.
I would say that's a big fat yes.
Okay, yeah. So just wondering, I won't quote the quote because sometimes I just not to offend anyone, but it's that quote comes to mind anytime I find myself. I'm like, I don't want to be. This is not for me. Let me continue on. So
yeah. Well, and I could say from my place of responsibility and belief, I have that similar struggle as a coach, because I want to see them do better. Like, if you're coming to me, we're trying to work on something, we're trying to get you to where you want to be. But if you're not looking like you're trying to move, sorry, that activator is like, peace out. I do it much better than that. But there is a time that's like, you have to put in the work. You have to take on the responsibility for your own life, because I can't take you there. And I'm sure you guys both deal with that with the restorative high. If you can't solve the problems for them, I don't know how we move forward.
Yeah. Kevin, that made me think of something else that you said when you mentioned, like, it sounds a lot like maximizer, like when it was constantly seeking to improve or even developer. But I had heard someone say, like, maximizer, they want to only work with things that work well, or, that's already working well. Where it's restorative, we want to identify what's causing the issue and what's stopping us and fix that. And so it sounds like, but then they were like, those are the two, like, they're completely different themes, in a sense that one likes to work with something that's already working well, and we like to go identify the thing that's broken and fix it.
The shed in the backyard.
Right.
Cool.
And Chad, do you remember when we were on our maximizer episode? Because maximizer is I don't even know where it is for me. I know it's somewhere close, but it was one of those ones where I kept going to the fix. Like, they're trying to fix it, and they're like, no, we're trying to make it better, not fix it. It's not broken. We're making it better. And I'm like, I can see where my lens is tinted there.
I've always seen those two on sort of a spectrum. The restorative, kind of gets it halfway down the line, and then the maximizers want to start picking it up. But maximizers don't want to start at
Polish.
the end, and restoratives don't typically, like, once it's in working order.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm sure you can continue to find, smaller and smaller problems, and that is probably some of that spinning wheel of oh, well, we could spend just a little bit more time, keep fixing. At least that's the thread I'm hearing. But maximizers have much more of an eye toward that, better to superb part of the spectrum. So
the polish.
Yes. So since we're already starting to talk about other themes, I want to kind of move us to the next question, which, now we've started to get a good sense of what this theme kind of looks like on its own. We know as coaches that our themes don't operate in silo, and those that we often coach, we're starting to try and help them understand, all right, what other themes are coming to play. I'm curious if there are particular themes that you have found to be super beneficial for yourselves that have kind of accelerated the success of restorative. So, is there something that you loop in with restorative on a regular basis? You're like, yeah, this just accelerates the success or the impact that it makes. And Jess, if you want to start us off, and Kevin, I definitely want to come back to you and hear what themes you have to play into this.
Yeah. For me, like, I think even on the connectedness episode, we talked about how that's a core. So connectedness must be mentioned, but I really lean on that individualization and responsibility, like creating unique solutions for individuals or clients based on their needs. And there's so many different factors that go into play that could affect an issue or a problem. And so being able to apply those lens helps. The responsibility piece is I'm the best accountability partner that someone can ask for. Like, if you give me a deadline, a time, you say you want to meet this goal, I'm on it. I'm on you on, like, let's make it. So responsibility, individualization, connectedness. And then the last one is developer. I lean on that one a little bit to help me, like, not only get the problem or situation back to its original state, but I also like to get it to the next level. So building it, fixing it so that it can go to the next level. So developing that potential. Those are some of the things that I lean on constantly in addition to the restorative.
Nice. Love that. Great start. Kevin, where do you go with yours? Because I know you've got a different talent theme blend than Jessica does. So what themes are you using to loop into your restorative?
So you ready for this? Get a load of this. Ready? Restorative is number 1. Strategic is number 2. Individualization is number 3. Developer is number 4. Ideation is number 5, and futuristic is number 6.
Oh wow!
And like, if you look at that, that's why I was so connected with this assessment the first time I took it, and because I was like, absolutely, because the excitement of thinking about what the future, like generating the idea around what it could be like, and then fixing all the parts to get it there. So it's that kind of change journey, that's like the change management journey of saying, all right, let's all get together and figure out what's our ideal future state vision, and then what we have to do to get there.
Wow. So I didn't know your honorable mention of futuristic was right there.
Right.
Ooh.
Change right there. Like,
yeah,
that puts you in a different level. I mean, a different year.
Absolutely.
Well, that's interesting, because that's what I'm hearing is that you two are almost going in similar tracks, but using very different talents to get there. I'm hearing, Jessica, you're getting things set up, good solid foundation for that next stage, that developer that really kicks in. And Kevin, I'm hearing the same sort of thread from yours, but the strategic and the futuristic, looking above and beyond just fixing the current problem, but setting almost like that developer, but thinking much more future oriented than what I think a lot of people see restorative as is, oh, there's the current problem, let's fix it. And that's been a big chunk of your comments to this point, both of you. But wow, what an interesting, like, get to the same place, couple different talent mixed combos. So Kevin, go ahead.
Chad, I'm surprised Jen hasn't brought this up yet, but when we took our class together, we talked about how there could be literally hundreds of chocolate chip cookie recipes out there.
Right.
with all kinds of different variations. But at the end result is it's a chocolate chip cookie. And the recipe that I use might be slightly different from your recipe, right? As long as they're soft. My chocolate chips have to be soft.
Correct.
There you go.
But so that was like became a theme of our class.
Yep, we were the strengths cookies. Yep. We all had different recipes, but we got there the same. We got to the same thing, just different ways. Yeah.
Oh,
No,
that's
it's
awesome.
just, I think I wanted to highlight that because I think a lot of people get wrapped up into, well, I have to have certain themes to do certain, have certain themes to do certain things. And yet you two have just highlighted that you're getting to very similar places, maybe not exactly the same, but very similar places using some very different themes. So I know that wasn't really at the core of the question I asked, but wow, what an insight for everybody involved.
Because strength is always about like how we do things, how we're successful, and like they say, like we can all do similar things and do the same thing, but how we get there is different, and that's the beauty of it.
Right.
Well, I don't want. My learner doesn't want to leave this thread, but I do have another theme dynamics question that I wanted to ask that may play on this in some way. But Jen asked earlier about our themes kind of getting away from us, taking us to those sort of negative places or overly applied, and you provide some great answers around what that looks like. I am curious now, given you have slightly different theme blends, are there particular themes that you use to kind of not necessarily rein in your restorative, but just get it in its better spot? It's sort of Goldilocks zone. Jen brought that term up. Bring it back to a bit more of a mature, appropriate level restorative. And Kevin, I'd love to hear from you first about what theme you might use to, that somebody else might resonate with, one of our listeners might resonate with, that, oh, I have that theme too. I can pair it with my restorative and get it back in the right spot. What themes do you lean on to get your restorative back into the right vein?
I would say probably the first two that come to mind would be, discipline and deliberative.
Okay.
When working on a project team, I have to discipline myself to be, and dial up the deliberative to understand that I'm a part of a project team and that I can't just come in and say, this is what we're going to fix. We're going to fix it this way and we're going to get it done. You have to engage the full team. So I would say probably that would be the first two come to mind. And then I'd be interested to see what Jessica has to say, because I might think of a couple more.
Yeah. So Jess, ball's in your court now. what things do you use to bring restorative back into its right, frame of mind?
To keep me off the problem train of just identifying.
Sure, if that's where you want to go.
Yeah, I really do. I try to lean into responsibility, because again, that responsibility is it's a love hate type relationship with that thing. I love it, but I have to learn how to hone it in. So now I lean into it to know when I'm presenting solutions or problems, and when I'm trying to actually solve the problem, I'm like, is it my responsibility or is this someone else's responsibility to kind of solve the problem? Because we not only want to present solutions, sometimes we want to actually be a part of the solution. We like to do.
Okay.
I like to actually I like to get my hands into the mix and really do things. But now I'm learning how to take a step back, how to delegate, as Kevin kind of just mentioned, this delegate tasks. And that also, so is it my responsibility to solve this problem, or do I just need to present a solution and keep going? Developer, I actually need to lean into that to allow people to go through this process of learning and learning how to actually identify the problem and be a part of the solution themselves. So empowering other people to get
Jessica,
to yes.
When you said that, you just reminded me, you shared with us before, I think, about how you don't solve problems that you're going to give your students ahead of time.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Can you share that?
Yes, this is as an educator. Oh my gosh, y'all. So the first year is fine because I had to go through and solve the problems myself. But the second semester, third semester, now I'm I already know the answer. So I'll just give you the solution. And I found I had to tweak it now I'm like, okay, I know what the problem is. Don't remind yourself of the solution before class, because I'm tempted to just give them the solution or get there sooner than actually allowing them to go through this process of figuring it out. Like, there's so much power in, like you said, teaching them how to fish is better than just giving them the fish. I feel like they've been given fishes their whole lives and no one even knows what a fishing pole is these days. So,
Right.
like maybe literally they might not know what a fishing pole is. Like, so now I have to go through this process of like, I'm like, okay, y'all, I might seem like I don't know the answer, but the thing is, if I know the answer, I'll give it to you. So I want you to see how I'm going to work through this, or I want you to figure it out too. Like, this is a process. It's that problem solving, critical thinking skills that they need to get out of my class. And so I love doing that. Like, I love just like helping them solve it themselves. That brought me out. And then the other thing that keeps me out of rabbit hole is the connectedness. So connectedness, identifying and connecting the problem or the solution to a goal, like to the mission. If it's not connected to the goal or mission, then maybe I don't, or if it's not even hindering the goal or mission, then maybe I don't need to identify or even like, talk about this problem or issue. Like, I don't need to give it as much power as it could have, or energy as it could have. So yeah, those are the things that come to mind.
Those are great. I think those will be really helpful for our listeners that might trying to be figuring out the right way to sort of manage and apply their restorative while keeping on the right track and going at the right speed. So I really appreciate you throwing out some of those theme dynamics for us.
Yeah.
So in our experience, as coaches, we have run into other people that maybe have themes that are the same as ours, but they use them very differently. Have either of you run into clients or other colleagues that also have restorative, but are coming out in a really different way than what you've shared with us today? Jessica, do you want to start?
Yes. So I was thinking about this, and I actually, I had to look and see, okay, who are my clients with high restorative, or who are people that I work with? And the one that uses it slightly different, so in a unique way, was this individual has like restorative, context, connectedness in her top 5. And so the way she comes about like identifying problems and presenting solutions is so like, or she also has, her top 5 is restorative, individualization, empathy, context, and connectedness. So she has that empathy, individualization, context, connectedness, but she leads with restorative at the top. So the problems that she was encountering or identifying, it was on a very deep level of like, and there was a historical context to it. So she was looking at a historical pattern that she'd seen, identifying the problem, and the solution that she presented was just so like, it resonated with the individual because those are some relationship building themes. And so she's identifying problems in people, but on a historical and deep level. And so I was like, oh, okay, like that's interesting, like, how did you come up with that problem? And when she told me, I was like, wow, okay. That is a new I didn't know that was a problem, but I can see that. Okay. And so that was just very interesting for me to witness and to hear someone come up with a problem that I had never like considered in the context of what we were talking about. So
Oh, great example. Kevin, do you have any?
Do absolutely. I worked one time. One of the things I love about this assessment, when you take it, when you join a team or you have a fairly new team that comes together, it gives you such insights into each other. And then it just things make sense, because if you do it and then you start working with the person. And one time I was working with, so I've reported to somebody who had restorative top 5, but also was very analytical, intellectual, and had to gather the inputs, and so she was all about data. So it was, let's go deep into the data and look at and I was more my restorative was more of almost like an architect. I wanted to design, I wanted to think creatively outside the box, and create visions. And she was about the data. What's the data telling us? What's the data going to lead us to? Give me more data, give me more information. And it was interesting to me because, and the analogy that I would draw is like, I was more of like the creative architect, and she was more of the engineer, the tactical
Oh,
engineer,
Yeah.
where
Where all the
everything,
screws went.
right.
yeah, and very,
Take a little over there.
precision. Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
I love it. No, it's so interesting about like what themes kind of surround it. As you mentioned, like there's people who are kind of data driven in the solutions, or and then there's the people oriented, the relationship solution or problem identifying. And then there's, like you said, like the future visionary type, like problem solving and solution oriented. It's so interesting how it shows up for me.
Yeah, we like to, Chad and I were saying when we first started with these episodes that, it's really about like what's seasoning it, right? It's like we have all of our little season, and depending on what those seasons are, it could taste like tacos or taste like, whatever. So we're not making taco cookies, but anyway, you get where I was going. Chad, did you have any other examples that you wanted to share?
No, I have one, but it's just hearing Jessica's example just brought to mind actually a group of people that I'm doing some work with right now that just have a lot of relationship building, especially a lot of high empathy. And so a lot of the problems, I mean, to stay with the lingo of the episode, it really has been around figuring out what the social dynamics are and what sort of emotional weight is being put on certain aspects of the work. And a number of the members are doing some great work around it, and are finding ways to use that restorative. But it was, from a coaching perspective, it was a new blend that I had not anticipated, and have really had to do some of my own work on figuring out, okay, well, what are the best questions, and how can I help them sort of teach themselves to fish, to use Kevin's analogy. But just been a different blend, and there's nothing bad or it's not good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. But it was definitely a unique restorative aspect. Interestingly, in the same organization, I had another gentleman who restorative number one, like you, Kevin, running super high and super hot, very, very focused on problems. What has been awesome to see around that is that he's used a number of those other themes to switch over to what Jessica has been talking about, and both of you have been talking about, is transitioning from just finding the problems to then finding the solutions. And he's actually done some great work in the last year to really hone his restorative to be much more on that solution side. He's come up with some great ones that have done some really good things for the organization. But it was interesting hearing that Kevin had it as number one, and I immediately started thinking of this gentleman that has it as his number one, and where he's come from, where he started and where he is now. I'm sure Jessica's developer would be thrilled to meet this guy and say, oh, this is how you develop that theme. But yeah, two different takes within the same organization. So
that's great. All right.
So we've had a lot of fun sort of exploring in depth around this theme. I want to take it a little lighter for a second, just because we know that there are people that might be listening to this episode and might need a quick takeaway of how to maybe remind themselves of this theme, or how to maybe initially engage with it. We have, in all of our other episodes, talked about certain images or pop culture references. I think Jen and I have each thrown in a song or two as a reflection of a certain theme. I'm wondering if you each, given that it is in your top 5 and it is in our mid-20s, if there are images that you think are really appropriate, or pop culture references that might be really appropriate to kind of highlight or introduce this theme to somebody else. And I'm going to start with you, Kevin, because it looks like you're giving this some serious thought. Okay.
What's that, Jessica? Oh,
I think she needed to go address something real quick. It's okay.
Oh,
life happens.
So
right.
Pop culture. So in terms of pop culture references, I can't help but think of almost the entire programming lineup on HGTV. Good Bones, and these they take these basket case problem houses and turn them into something magnificent. And I'm always fascinated by watching that journey. So I would say that would be one pop culture reference. I'm trying to think of, image wise. I mean, for me, it all goes back to the shed in the backyard and what an unsightly mess that it was. And how, we turned it into something much more attractive, and, how everybody that would come visit, they'd be like, wow, that's amazing. Is that brand new? No, just a couple cans of paint and some hard labor and
Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, I had to dip out. My dog had a little slight emergency. Like,
Oh dear.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
Oh,
Hope everybody's okay.
yeah.
I think he's fine.
All right.
I'll tend to him a little later. Tools, is that what I heard? Like shed, Home
Yes.
Depot? Is that what I hear?
images. We're thinking of images.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
image-
Home Depot. That's another good one. Going into Home
Okay.
Depot or Lowe's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
For me, the image that comes to mind is like a Swiss Army knife, like always having whatever tool or resource you need available to help solve the solution. That comes to mind. That's the image. Yeah,
That's great.
Nice.
Tools in general.
Nice. Jen, do you have one that you would add? I know this is in our
know,
mid-20s, theme rankings, but
And it doesn't really make sense, but mine was a microscope, and like the little slides, and then you like get to the root, like we're looking for the problem and we're, like getting to the root of it. But mine was really more about seeing the problem. Again, the deliberatives coming into place here, seeing the problem, not necessarily the solution to it. So mine's only half. So I don't think it's that great.
all right.
What about you?
So the one I had, and this is a pop culture reference, but as I've listened to both our guests talk, the image that keeps coming to mind is the character Fix-It Felix from the movie Wreck-It Ralph. And he had that golden hammer. It does have a connotation around the tools, but he had this golden hammer and he would hit the building that Wreck-It Ralph had just wrecked, and it would immediately come back. It was basically restored or reboot. And so that was one.
It's a great one.
And then the other one, it kind of builds off of something, Kevin, you were just saying about like the HDTV imagery, is so many of those shows have like the before and after photo, right? The absolute train wreck of a house that has been lived in 10 years. It's got trees growing up through it. And then the after photo of, some magnificent mansion that, somebody got for a steal is, I think, another great image to just keep in mind. That sort of before and after is this theme can do that great, this is the problem before, this is the solution after.
Yeah, nice.
So
well, those are great images, and it's a good reminder for those that are just starting out and just understanding what restorative is, to be able to put some of those images in their mind and think like, does that land for me? Does that make sense? Like, how does that show up for me? So I appreciate that. So let's lean into as we think about how others can best interact with those who have restorative in their top 5. What advice could you give to team leaders or peers to help the person who has restorative offer their best contribution to the team? Who wants to go first?
Let's
go Jessica, because she's already talking. Go Jessica.
I got you. I'd say really lean into the fact that they're energized by problems, so give them problems, give them things that are, if there's something keeping you up at night and or or even at work, something that's keeping a constant challenge or hurdle or obstacle, talk to that person about it. And when working in teams, like I found myself most beneficial when I had the flexibility to kind of like move around and get to know like what are different individuals doing and what's keeping them from being successful. And so I'd say like fuel their creativity with that, allowing them to see different challenges and obstacles that might be a group or a team might be experiencing, can fuel the creativity for solving a solution. So like my solution is more beneficial if it can not only help solve your issue, Chad, and Jen's issue. Like, so the more problems I'm aware of, the more creative I can be with solutions. And so I'd say like, give this person problems, encourage them to, come up with solutions, appreciate them, ask them, what is the solution or what ideas do you have about how we can address this issue? There's a lot of ways you can kind of to help them offer their best to the team.
Nice.
And
Great.
I'm sorry, one big thing is like involve them in the process early on, because they might be able to identify problems that you're not even thinking of, because we are able to kind of like identify future problems in a sense, like, and not, as Kevin mentioned, probably to a greater scale, but like identify issues and things that you might encounter. So if you involve them in the process of when you're developing an ideal or a new thing, like that could be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Nice. Great. Thanks. Kevin.
Yeah, restorative has probably been one of my favorite strengths themes to leverage in leading teams through change or turnaround. One of the opportunities I had was a turnaround situation, and I went in and morale was abysmal. And it was problems everywhere, and no one even knew where to begin. There was no energy. It was just like, we're just lost. We're spinning here. And so what I would say is there was this one little exercise that we did, and it quickly gave them self-confidence that, hey, we're going to fix this. Like, this is actually going to happen. We're actually going to be able to do this. And so I would say, to add on to what Jessica said, in using to instill the confidence of those around you and the teams or the individual that you're coaching, to show them that it can be done, and it will be done. And it's not such a daunting task after all, if you just break it down into its parts and systematically go and fix it.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that level of hope you are giving to the team that this problem can be fixed. It's not, broken forever. And what a great way to motivate others and to share yours. So that's a great answer.
Kevin, I'd be interested in sort of expansion of your answer. So for leaders that you have worked for, that might not have restorative, I'm loving what you're saying about how you have brought your restorative. I'm curious, has there been anything that the leaders you've reported to, or maybe even the peers around you, have done to help bring that restorative out, so that it wasn't, say, maybe hiding in the background, that they're like, hey,
I don't think Kevin's has ever hidden.
I don't think so either. But I'm curious, like, has there been anything that has, that they have done for you that has better facilitated your ability to apply your restorative, or brought it out, or brought it to the attention of others? I guess I'm just trying to think of like other team leaders that might have somebody like you on their team, but they're figuring out how to bring that out, or get that contribution on the table. What can they do to facilitate that?
You have to. So there, I'm thinking back to one of the best change management journeys that I ever went on. Yeah. I reported to somebody who was very clear about expectations, under no uncertain terms, said, we have to do this. These are the three main areas, and they have to be done within 12 months. What tools do you need? What support do you need? And just tell me what it is I can do to support you. And so then I've then kind of used that person as a role model in some of my situations after that, where, in helping other people, I just say, listen, you got to tell me what your obstacles are and what I can do to kind of clear your path. So I would say that it was those leaders. I've had both very good, very positive, and I've had far from good and far from positive. And the main difference was clearly setting the expectation up front, supporting and delivering the tools, resources to get it done, and then kind of just stepping back and not micromanaging it, staying out of the weeds, and just asking for like regular progress updates, and then establishing an environment of strong and high trust, where people felt confident in being able to go and say, listen, we're slipping here. We're behind schedule. We messed this up. This is what we need to do to get back on track. And it was creating that kind of, that safe environment to make sure that as long as we were being transparent and being realistic, and could prove that we weren't goofing off,
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm hearing there is by having that high level of trust, you're offering people the opportunity to highlight the problems, kind of going back to what Jessica was saying, so that then restorative knows where to then plug into the operation. Is that, you said it so much more, but I want to make sure I'm catching the main thread here. Is that's where the real opportunity is, offering the hey, we're slipping here, and then restorative can be like, oh, the slip is where I solve. Is that what I'm hearing?
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely absolutely part of it.
I just want to make sure I'm connecting the right dots. My analytical is picking up on the right thread there. So I appreciate that. Was there anything else either of you want to add to Jen's question?
I think, just like truly supporting someone with high restorative. If you empower them to actually solve the problem, like make sure they have what they need to solve that problem, and truly give them the autonomy and trust to that their goal is to improve. It's not to continually cause more problems or to come up with more problems. Like we're not always looking for a problem. Our goal is to improve and to bring something back to efficiency, full efficiency, and where it's running. So I think a way that a leader is really supporting them and asking them what do they need, and trusting them to solve the problems, and keeping them on track, setting the goal. What are the expectations? How many problems do I need to solve? What's the priorities?
Nice.
And I keep falling into this trap of thinking it's a thinking theme, and then remembering, no, this is an executing theme. And you both have said it over and over again, that this isn't just about seeing the problems and knowing the solutions. You actually want to get your hands dirty and get it done. You want to be part of the fix, part of the solution. And I loved hearing that from both of you.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about problems all day with no solutions, best believe I might exit out of the conversation. Now,
right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome hour of conversation. I want to bring us in sort of for the landing. And as you all know, as being good coaches, sometimes it's helpful to have the person we're coaching summarize their conversation. So we are using that theme to sort of wrap up our show. I'm curious, in that vein, I'd like to come to each of you with maybe your top 2 or 3 takeaways, particularly if Jen and I ever clip these out as shorts or to introduce the theme. What are 2 or 3 key things that you think people should really know about this theme in sort of a succinct manner? Maybe if you can do it, 1, 2, 3 bullet point. What are your key takeaways? Something that you either wanted to get to in this episode that you didn't necessarily have a chance to call out specifically, or something that you'd really like to re-emphasize from this episode. Kevin, I'd like to start with you and just finish with your thoughts, and then we'll start end the show with that. But Kevin, what would you highlight?
Okay, so I would say number 1, not all problems are bad and to be feared. Not everything that's broken is a bad, scary thing. That it can actually be incredibly rewarding and enjoyable to lean in and go at it and get it done. That'd be my first thought. Then Jessica, I'll let you, we can bat back and forth.
All right, we'll go back and forth. That's fine. We can do that too.
Okay, yeah, I like that, because tied with that is for anyone dealing with someone high restorative or someone high restorative, go from being problems driven to solutions driven. Really don't just focus on the problems, power yourself and think through what is the solution and present that along with the problem. So yeah, Kevin, what's your number 2?
So I would say okay, now let's keep building, right? Keep building over that. It's not always about fixing a broken thing as it is, continuing to grow and continuing to develop and continuing to evolve, and continuing to get better, either individually, personally, if you're, coaching a client that's got like a personal challenge, that it's not, all about fixing something that's bad and broken. It's about continuing on a growth journey.
Yeah.
And you can apply that to a business process. You could apply that to a failing department, or a department that's just kind of stagnated, and it just needs to keep going.
Yeah. 2 for me would be along those lines is learn how to delegate. And this is again for someone with high restorative or anyone working with someone. So we want to solve all the problems sometimes, and we can do it. We know we can, but sometimes we need to learn how to delegate and empower others to solve their own problems and give them the tools and the resources, teach them the basic foundational things that they need. And if they're not a problem solver, I mean, we can just teach them how to connect with someone who can solve their problem. So don't try to do everything yourself. Learn how to delegate, learn how to empower others, and continue to solve the problems that you do solve. So yeah, that's number 2 for me.
Nice.
I have
that one. No, I
Got a three?
definitely
Got a number 3?
I got a three, Kevin. Oh.
That one resonates for sure.
Yeah.
As far as
I'm learning, I'm still learning how to do that. So
yeah, and I continue to struggle with it. I definitely continue to struggle with wanting to just zero in and go right to fixing and getting to the answer or the solution or the future state, whatever it is, instead of taking other people along for the ride, along for the journey, empowering them, energizing them, and then because then they build up their confidence.
Right.
Then, this is like, not all change is bad and to be feared. And
right. And I didn't realize that people aren't so adept to addressing problems. Like, people sometimes avoid and run away from problems, like they see a problem, they take a left or a right. I like to face the problem head on. And so that's and it's in number 3 for me is it's energizing. Like, it gives me energy to solve and to fix things, because it just gives me energy. So that, I think that's a big one to take away for those dealing with us problem solving lovers.
that comment right there makes me, if there's any fans of the band OAR that are going to watch this, go over and under, around and round, and I go through.
Nice. There you go.
Nice. I was trying to think of a song related.
That's a great one.
I think of one. That's a good one. Nice.
Very good. Nice work, Kevin.
So just offered a third one, Kevin. My harmonies is gonna kill me if I don't at least ask if you have a third or not. It's okay if you don't, but
no, I thought I delivered 3.
Okay, awesome. All right. OAR is his number 3.
OAR.
Go listen to the song. You'll understand Restorative. Okay, awesome. I think that's an awesome high note to end on. I really appreciate all the energy and all the insight that you have shared today. This has just been fantastic. As Jen and I highlighted at the beginning, this theme for both of us resides somewhere in our mid-20s in terms of our ranked order. This has been very educational. I'm looking forward to taking some of your insights and thinking about some of my coaching clients going forward. So I would just want to say thank you to start. For our listeners, if you have enjoyed and gotten as much energy out of this episode as we have, I encourage you to leave us reviews. Definitely rate us on the Apple Podcast or Google Podcast platforms, so that we can keep bringing awesome content like this. And also, we encourage you, Jen and I post this on our LinkedIn and sometimes our Facebook accounts. Engage with the conversation. We'd love to hear from you about what else, how else this theme comes out for people. So please feel free to engage with us and our wonderful guests going forward.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with either of our guest coaches today, with Jessica or with Kevin, you're able to get their contact information in the show notes. And then, as always, if you want to get in touch with either of us, Chad and me, please use our respective links in the show notes too.
Excellent. Yeah. So until next time, I'm Chad Adrian from Talent Teams Consulting, encouraging everybody to keep playing to their strengths.
And I'm Jen Werner of Jen Werner Coaching, encouraging you to be uniquely you.
Thanks. You, everybody.